Hey, welcome to a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. I'm Ron Coddington, the editor and publisher of Military Images magazine. Today's episode is sponsored by the Untold Civil War podcast. If you haven't listened, check out Paul Hosa. He does an amazing job with some really unusual, offbeat content about the Civil War. Go wherever you get your podcasts and check out Untold Civil War. You'll really enjoy it. Today's story starts with the photograph that I have here on the screen. And it is pretty interesting. This is a detail of an image that shows his full body. But take a look at what we have here. This guy with big, thick sideburns probably would do Ambrose Burnside justice. He is wearing a dark jacket. His cuffs are trimmed. He has shoulder straps on. He's holding a straw hat. He's leaning on the wheel, a pilot's wheel, so it looks like he's in the pilot house. There's a big brass cylinder in front of him. Just has all the look that you would want to see in a Civil War era image. On top of that, the back of the image has an imprint, a photographer's imprint that locates it in New Orleans. So it's a pretty good bet that you can imagine that this seafaring man was somehow involved on the Mississippi River or the Gulf of Mexico and stopped by to get his photograph made in the local studio. So this is the beginning, the entry point that I want to talk about U.S. Navy rank insignia. Check out the insignia that this guy is wearing. If you look at his cuff, for example, you will see 5 stripes, light colored. We imagine they're probably gold or a yellow color, and they're very tightly packed, literally layer caked on top of one another. And then if you look at his shoulder insignia, you will see the strap is very, very narrow. It can't be more than possibly an inch wide, maybe even less than that. So a very narrow shoulder strap. And there appears to be no insignia. There's no anchor, there's no star. There's nothing that indicates who exactly he is. So that combination of the shoulder strap and the cuffs, and also the absence of a hat, which would have had an insignia, although his straw hat doesn't have any insignia on it, are valuable clues to be able to help us understand who exactly this guy was. So this gets me to the U.S. Navy rank insignia. During the Civil War, the U.S. and CS armies had a relatively consistent insignia. The chevrons, the cuffs, the shoulder straps, the collar trim, all of that remained relatively consistent during the war, keeping in mind that standardization during the Civil War is not what we know not what we know today. So as standard could be between 1861 and 1865, U.S. Army and CS Army rank is generally consistent. Now, in the Navy, in the U.S. Navy, for example, it's very, very different. In fact, quite the opposite is true. If you check out the link that I include here with this video, you will see that there's literally a change or a series of changes every year in the U.S. Navy between 1861 and 1865. The Confederate Navy, much less is known, but they remain sort of similar to the Confederate Army. Things generally stay the same. But the U.S. Navy is quite the outlier. These constant changes, the constant tweaks of the hat device, of the shoulder straps and the cuffs, it leaves you scratching your head a little bit. It's like, why were they making all of these changes? The theory that I'm going with, the best explanation that I can think of, is rooted in the idea that ships during the Civil War period were making the transition from wood, traditional wood, to newfangled metal. Think of the USS Monitor, think of the CSS Virginia, and all of the ships of that ilk. Well, those ships and the changes in technology with engines required a whole new thinking about what the engineers were on a ship. Those days of steam, the movement to the metal and the steam, you wind up getting a different needs that happen within your engineering department. So a lot of tweaks are going on there. And also you have new ranks. The pre-war Navy, which was pretty simple, begins to take form, and there begins to be a different ranks that are occurring, or tweaking ranks. So as a result, you have these changes that are taking place from year to year. So if you look at the guide that I sent, it's great, I think. It's the U.S. Naval Landing Party. Of all the places that I've gone in the past to try to find information, to try to make sense of U.S. Navy rank insignia, I have found the U.S. Naval Landing Party to be the best of the best. Why? It's simple, it's intuitive. You can click through the different links and you can compare the ranks. You can compare those hat devices, the shoulder straps, and the cuffs. So if you take the time to go through each one of those pages and then compare it to the individual that we see here, this seafaring man with the sideburns, you're going to find out that there's actually no match. There's no situation where you have those 5 tightly packed stripes evenly spaced. The insignia on his shoulder strap, that very thin shoulder strap with no star or no anchor, it doesn't occur in the US or the CS. So that leaves us with a little bit of a mystery. Who is this guy? You might think that he was part of the US Revenue Marine Service. I'll save that conversation for another day, but the rank insignia does not match. You might think that he is an international traveler. Perhaps he's from another country that was visiting New Orleans as a port of call. That's also possible. Another possibility is that he was a steamboat captain or some sort of a river pilot who was on business, on some commercial business, traveling in the area. So you could take your pick at the moment. Could be international, could be a steamboat captain. More work to be done. Perhaps another copy of this carte de visite will pop up somewhere that is identified, and that will be a huge help, because right now he stands as an unidentified person who is somehow related to the sea and seagoing vessels or river-going vessels. So that's what I got for you today. Thanks for listening. Until the next video, happy trails.